Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Okay, here's what happened. I got to my doorstep. It arrived on my doorstep, rather. The new shit from JACLYN Cosmetics. She sent me the, oh, it's so dirty with my fingerprints, I'm so sorry. She sent me the new blush and bronzer duos, and then the new, are they new? The highlights? I think that she actually came out with the highlights at some point, and now that they're back. I don't know the story there. Anyways, she sent me those things too. Let me preface this with saying, at the best of times, I never enjoyed reviewing anything that JACLYN has launched. Not because of any feelings towards JACLYN specifically, but just because if you like something that JACLYN launches, you are like a scumbag suck up. If you don't like something that JACLYN launches, you're like a petty hater. It's just like a really weird phenomenon with her specifically. Like there's been other like influencer collabs and stuff like that that I've, talked about, and it just doesn't have the same reaction from people, negative or positive. It's just like, I don't know, it's like a very polarizing lady, you know? That's what it comes down to. I'm just gonna start off with saying that. It also feels so weird now owning a brand and then reviewing other, more so influencer brands, because like, I feel a kinship there, kind of. It's odd and weird, but I mean, this is still my job, you know what I mean? So anyways, I'm gonna tell you guys my thoughts. I have used the blush and bronzer duos. I haven't tried the highlighters yet. If you're new to my channel, I'm gonna preface this with saying, I rarely opt for powder products. Especially when it comes to highlight, I really don't prefer powder highlights. I prefer creams or liquids. I prefer cream or liquid blush, and same thing with bronzer. So that's pretty well known by most people that watch me. So keep that in mind. I do always try to, if I don't like a product just based off personal preference, not like the performance of the product, I do always try to, suggest who I think might like that product more, which usually is people with oilier skin. I have like incredibly dry skin. Apparently so does JACLYN, but I don't know how, based on a lot of JACLYN dry skin gate, based on a lot of like how she does her makeup, or like the products that she kind of like leans towards. I'm like, that's really interesting, because I explicitly like stray away from certain techniques and certain products because my skin is so dry, but maybe she has like a normal person's dry skin and I have skin that's so dry. It's like drier than most women after having to have a conversation with men. Just pretty fucking dry. Anyways, let's jump into it. So let's start with the blush bronzer duos, okay? I am a packaging snob, I'm very much aware. I have a few thoughts about this packaging. The first thing that I thought when I took them out was that I was like, oh wow, these are very big, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but I do feel like they're like a little clunky kind of thing. Like they're just like, they take up a lot of space. They're just big boys, you know? And the other thing that I thought was so bizarre, so if you look at the packaging, can you see that? Kind of. No, can't focus. Oh yeah, here. So you can kind of see that like this is the part that opens whoop, like that. And then there's still like that little step there, and then another bottom part. I thought that this like slid out to reveal something. And so I was like trying to like slide this out for the longest time. I was so confused because that's just what it looks to me like. Anyways, it's not. There's nothing underneath there, in case that you had the same thought as I did. And I don't think that she released a video talking about these. So normally, like, I would like to watch people's videos to kind of understand, like, why did they choose that formula? Why did they choose that packaging? What do they like about it? What do they not like about it? So I can like have a better understanding. Because sometimes there's things that I don't like about packaging, but then when I hear the why behind it, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. So that was something that I thought was weird. I don't personally love the packaging. I do feel like, God, see, I wrestle with this. it has a nice weight to it. I just feel like, I don't know, man. I'm just such a like packaging snob. That's the only thing. And I didn't like that the raised J right here is not like a flat surface. It kind of comes to like a triangle. So like you can't stack them or anything like that, just in terms of like putting them away in your thing. This is just nitpicky shit. Like this is just like personal preference shit. It doesn't change anything at all about the product. It's just, you know, packaging is like an important aspect of cosmetics to me, because like I just do enjoy really, really nice packaging. I do enjoy like packaging that's like innovative and different stuff like that. So that's why I like focus on it as an aspect of like reviewing and stuff. The mirror inside is gigantic, which is really, really nice. And I know that a lot of people like to have like good big old mirrors because they use those mirrors while doing their makeup and stuff. One thing that I was struck by is that these are made in Italy, the formula, which, let me tell you something. Generally speaking, formulas coming out of Italy, they ain't cheap, okay? I had a little tickling suspicion, okay? So JACLYN Cosmetics was acquired by Morphe. Well, no, I should say JACLYN Cosmetics was acquired by Forma Brands, formerly known as Morphe Holdings, okay? In I think August. And when that happened, I was like, interesting, okay. So I think JACLYN herself had mentioned a couple times that there was like a lot of restructuring going on for JACLYN Cosmetics after, you know, the whole like lipstick debacle thing. And I was like, I wonder if they're going to start producing more products in China, just because that's like Morphe's whole thing, which is fine. Like there's cosmetics coming out of China that are phenomenal, but they are usually like significantly cheaper. And so I was like, I'm curious to see if she ends up like moving a lot of stuff to China. And so I was very surprised when I saw that this was out of Italy. Pleasantly surprised. I do love Italy. Italian formulas, rather. When I first looked at the, like just viewed the formula, I was like, oh yeah, this might be a powder that I enjoy. And then I swatched it and I was like, oh yeah, this might be a powder I enjoy, because they swatch, if you guys have been seeing swatches online or watching other review videos and stuff like that, they swatch quite lightly, especially the lighter palettes. Like the two that are like kind of like the deeper shades swatch a little bit more heavily, but the lighter ones swatch pretty light, which I actually really prefer, because forever I would rather have blushes and bronzers that are buildable and really sheer and stuff like that, so you can kind of build that up rather than having a super pigmented blush or bronzer. I just find it like annoying to work with, basically. I would rather kind of be able to like work up. So then also I feel like that makes your product a little bit more versatile for days when like I will eventually apply this product, I swear to God. I feel like that does make your product more versatile for, you know, like maybe I want to have like a more no makeup kind of day and I want to apply just like a little bit of bronzer. I'm not dealing with this like bronzer that's like so pigmented that I can't put it on lightly, or it's like way more time consuming to try and put on lightly and have like the most gingerly touch, you know what I mean? I don't know. So when I swatched them, I was pretty excited. I felt like a lot of the tones she chose were really beautiful. The one thing that I noticed, there's 7 shades altogether, and like 4 of them, how am I going to do this? Hold on, I have to see how I'm gonna hold this shit. For fuck's sake. This is not happening for me. Anyways, these, I have like every part of my face in like a different part of the mirror. These 4 palettes, the 4, I don't know if they're the 4 lightest. I think there actually is one that's like lighter than these 4 ones. But 4 out of the 7 shades, I was like, wow, those are pretty similar. Like pretty similar looking in the pans. There is like subtle differences between the undertones and stuff like that. This is something that it's so hard to explain. Because they're sheer, sheerness already makes it so that like your shade range is a little bit more flexible. When things are super, super pigmented, it's a lot harder to kind of like blend out, and you know, there isn't as much of like your skin showing through. So that makes the shade range less flexible. As soon as you make it sheer, it's like that much more flexible, that much more like kind of, you know, versatile. Like someone could probably fall into like a few different palettes rather than just one. And so because of that fact, because the formula to me does strike me as a formula that's meant to be more sheer and buildable, I found it odd that 4 out of the 7 were so similar, especially because once you put that on the skin, it's going to look even less discernible. So I posted this photo of like swatches of those 4 bronzers from the 4 different palettes and the 4 blushes from the 4 different palettes side by side on Twitter. Everyone was calling me a petty bitch. Not everyone, but it's just like, the thing is, here's the truth of the matter. I am fucking petty, but this is not the instance where I'm trying to be petty. I just found it confusing because I felt like, why would you invest so much money into doing like a fairly extensive shade range for like a smaller brand? Like I'm sure that JACLYN and like Morphe and Forma have tons and tons of money to like piss into this, but still, they are like, you know, a smaller brand in comparison to like a L'Oreal or an Estee Lauder or whatever. And so I just found it kind of like interesting that they would choose to put the money into having the shade range be pretty expansive, but make these 4 palettes so similar when they're sheer, so they're going to be flexible anyway. So they could have been more diverse kind of thing, because I personally could easily use all 4 of these palettes, which is fine, that's great. I could also probably use this one as well and just like build up the bronzer a little bit. This one's like quite fair, and that's the one that has the more kind of like lilac-y blush in it. So it's just like, it's such a hard thing because the tones of the bronzers are stunning, like they're beautiful. The tones of the blushes are really beautiful as well. I just found it odd that those like 4 shades, I don't know, it's just weird. Anyways, that's my little gripe. So that's the other like lilac-y one. And then this, I believe, is the deepest one that she has, which this is like the Espresso Shot Be Rouge one. So those are the 2 deepest palettes. This is Hot Lava and Cocoa Rich. So all of that to say, I do feel like the lightest palette is probably the more lilac-y one. And I do feel like that's very light. Like I feel like even if you were like porcelain, like very light, I feel like that would be like a suitable bronzer color for you, especially because the undertone is like such a nice neutral undertone. It's not super cool where you're gonna look really gray and ashy, and it's not too warm where it's gonna look really orangey on your skin. I think that that would be suitable for very light people. I just feel like there's so much for the kind of like light to medium range, and I wish that there was like a little bit more of a differentiation between those 4 palettes, or that the shade range spread a little bit further into the deeper spectrum, or both. Personally, like seeing these all side by side, I wouldn't be inclined to be like, oh, okay, I need to pick up like 2 of these shades, which like I've been known to do in the past, okay? But like if one of the blushes was more of like a coral, and then like another blush like was a little bit more of like a pinky kind of like, you know, like there was like quite a difference in the undertones between the blushes. I just feel like that would like have a little bit more variety in the shade range, and it would make more sense to me to have those 7 shades rather. So the shade that I like the most is this one. Oh no! Again, instant karma. This is like JACLYN stan spirits being like, fuck you, bitch. Okay. Jesus. This is gonna be the longest video for literally no reason. When I watch other, and I'm still rambling, that's the problem. When I watch other people's videos, I'm like, wow, like they have a 5-minute video or like an 8-minute video. And I'm like, let me talk about just the packaging of one product 40 fucking minutes. Okay, anyway, so my favorite shade from this range is the Warm Flush and Golden Goddess. It smells like nothing. So I'm gonna put that bronzer on with just a big old brush. This is a Smith brush. What is the actual name of it? Because I think that this was a lab sample. Hold on. I think this is the 154 brush, but I can't verify that. I'm going to just dot that into the little bronzer. The packaging's growing on me a little bit. I just feel like it's, I prefer more like slim or like concise packaging, I guess, is my thing. Anyways, and then I'm just going to basically tap that on over top. I don't set my foundation or anything like that. So when I'm using powders over top, because my foundation is just naturally going to be a little bit more moist, because I do opt for a dewier foundation, I like to just tap those bronzers on, or just powders on over top, because I find that it gets a more even application. It's less likely to get patchy or anything like that. So you can see, like, if you look at that like bronzer shade next to my skin, like it is quite a bit darker than my skin, but you can see like how sheer and buildable those are, which I really just, again, I love that in a formula personally. I think it also makes it more versatile in the aspect of like, I typically apply my bronzer kind of like around the like perimeter of my face sort of thing. If you had a foundation that was like too light for you, this is sheer enough that you kind of could actually like bronze all over to like, you know, add a little bit of warmth or like depth into your foundation. And then I'm gonna take a little across my nose. And then I'm gonna grab a fan brush from Hakuhodo. This is the F6141 brush. I love a fan brush for blush. It's just so nice. And I'm gonna dip that into my little blush here. In terms of the actual formula, I do really like that it's buildable and like more sheer. I feel like, again, this is where my confusion around JACLYN being dry comes in. Not that she makes her cosmetics like only for her, obviously. This formula for me is a little too dry. Like it looks quite dry on my skin, rather, I should say. When I first swatched it, I was like, ooh, that looks like a little glowy. And I thought that it would be like kind of a little bit glowier on the skin. But for me, it's not particularly glowy. It's quite like dry and quite matte. I do find that the powder almost has like some like kind of like diffusing properties to it. Like it makes my skin look a little bit, like I guess like smoother kind of. It's hard to explain. It looks like more diffused. Like it doesn't, I don't know how to fucking explain that any better, which I think is nice. Almost like blurring properties. That's a better way to put it. But I do find it like a little bit too dry. So when I first put these on, I was like, I'm dehydrated. I prefer these, like as soon as I put a cream highlight over top, I'm like, cool, this is fine, everything's fine. That's how I would prefer to wear these, just because my skin is so dry that like I do like to have a little bit of that kind of like, you know, like wet texture back onto my skin after applying my face products. So that's how I prefer to apply it. I'm going to be trying her highlighter today, so I'm going to do that with the powder. I'm gonna put the powder on my face. But then after, I'm gonna try probably like putting a little bit of like a cream highlight over top, just to see if, one, if the highlighters interact well with that, because I do like layering like creams on top of powders, but two, if I can kind of like get a little bit of moisture going, because I do feel like it makes the blush and bronzer look just like a lot nicer on like my skin in particular. With the highlights, it's like the same component basically, but smaller. The first thing that struck me is that a lot of the shades are like pretty weird. They're like very, very red and very, very coppery and very, very gold, which I think is like, I mean, that one's a little more like, that's pretty pink, which I think like deeper skin tones absolutely can like totally get away with that. I do still feel like even on deeper skin tones, it is more of like a kind of like trendy highlighter in my opinion, rather than like it's clearly not skin tone. Do you know what I mean? Like it's more kind of like that trendy, like when we were all doing like the duochrome highlights and stuff like that. When I was first going through these, I was like, oh, there's not really like a shade that like stands out to me as like the shade that like I would choose if I was like shopping in person, because they all kind of have something about the undertone that I'm like, that's odd. But I think the shade that I'm going to use is, I think this one, which is like probably the lightest, which is Iced. I'm gonna do Iced, but I'm also gonna dip a little bit into Mesmerized. I'm gonna kind of like do these, don't know if oh fuck, I put my finger in this. I'm such a mess. This is chaos, this video, oh my God. I don't know if I said why I'm mixing these. This one's pretty like silvery kind of highlight, and then this one's a little bit more of like a warmy pink peach gold kind of color. So I'm gonna like dip back and forth between the two, because I think that that'll create a nice little unity, you know? I'm gonna use the same brush that I used for my blush. I'm just gonna go like this. And it's clean now. I'm gonna dip in very, very lightly because I already know what I'm in for here. Picking up a little bit more. Oh fuck, see, now I went too far. Oh god damn it. I think one of my subscribers was saying that like Christy really loves these highlights. Oh man, it's so hard for me to say too because my skin really is so textured right now. My first kind of reaction to these bronzer or these highlights, Jesus Christ, is that it does make my skin look quite a bit more textured. It's just really hard for me to discern right now. Like, how would this look on smooth skin? Would it still make smooth skin look textured or not? I don't know, but it's just like my cheeks are so textured right now. Like they just are really, they got all kinds of shit going on. So I feel like in the state that my skin is in right now, I wouldn't opt for these just because like I do feel like it makes my skin look quite textured. There are certain powder formulas that I feel like I look less textured using than this. It's just hard, yeah. I have basically no thoughts that I can like reasonably give on this product because my camera stopped recording. It was like, all right, then let's fucking end this. let's end this here and just be done for the day. I have no thoughts to like give on this that I feel like are actually like helpful basically. Based on my texture, based on my preference around like powders versus creams, this isn't a product that I would like use or like. That's basically it. I can't speak to whether or not this would look particularly textured on less dry skin, like more normal or like even like oily skin. I can't really speak to that. I'm not sure. I've watched a couple people's videos about it because I was curious what people were saying about those like 4 palettes and seeing like if it swatched so similarly on their skin as well. Anyways, I didn't see anyone that I was like, oh shit, that looks hella textured. I didn't see anyone like that. So again, I don't think that that's helpful at all for you. So you're gonna have to come to your own conclusion on the highlight there. But yeah, I do feel dry as a mother right now. So I am gonna go over top of this with a cream highlight and just see how those play together. I'm gonna take some on my little finger. This is a cream, not a liquid. And I'm just going to tap that all on the floor. Will it ever get old? I don't think so, not for me. Yeah, I just do feel like as soon as I put that cream texture over top of like the blush bronzer combo, I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, this is now right up my alley. Well, not right up my alley, but much closer to my alley. So I put my little cream highlight over top and I do feel like that cream highlight just like melted together really beautifully with the cream highlight and the powder highlight. You know what I'm saying? They melted together really beautifully. Sometimes when you layer creams over top of powders, the results can be disastrous. I just like to take the risk, you know? But those like melted together really, really beautifully. I feel like it does definitely improve the appearance of like the texture on my skin personally. So I think if anything, like if there was a shade of that highlight that really, really spoke to me, I probably would purchase it for the sake of like mixing with a cream, you know what I mean? Like if it was like a really unique highlight shade and I was like, ooh, like I can't find that elsewhere, I would just adapt that formula to suit my needs as I do. So yeah, that's it. So my final thoughts. Oh yeah, she also sent this thing. I don't think she sent this, by the way. I keep saying she sent it like as if like JACLYN personally hand selected me and then sent me specifically product from her post office. And I don't think that's what happened. I think Morphe somehow got my address, which I also don't know how that happened. And because now they're like, you know, together, I don't know what to say. Ugh. Oh my God, now I have to bend over. I don't know how Morphe got my address, but they did. They've been sending me things. So I think that that's why these things appeared at my door. Anyways, they also sent this loose highlighter, which is in the flavor Hypnotic. It's like a lilac. I'm not gonna wear that, so, but it's there if you want it in your life. These are my final thoughts, okay? Packaging, 4 out of 10 for me. I see where they were headed but then I feel like they got out of the car like a block early. I like beautiful packaging, but I also like packaging, it makes sense, basically. And so I feel like if that raised J was flat, even that would change my opinion on the flat packaging, because I feel like I could stack it better. It would like sit in my drawer better against one another and stuff like that. It's like a minor gripe, but just because like I do have so much shit, so I really have to be like specific about how I'm fucking Tetrising shit in there. Stuff like that, I'm just like, oh my God. Where am I gonna put those blush and bronzer duos because the fucking J. So anyways, that kind of is annoying to me, and I do feel like it is just like a little bit like chunky, and like it's just not like my favorite packaging. That doesn't matter at all. It doesn't change anything about the product, obviously. The blush and bronzers, God, I'm so torn. I'm so torn. I do feel like this formula for me is a little bit too dry personally, just in like finish. I think that, as I said, like it builds up really beautifully. It blends out fairly well. Like I don't feel like I had any like extreme patchiness or anything like that. And I do like the appearance of it on my skin once I put the cream highlighter over top. So I don't know. I do feel like she did a good job, as I mentioned, with the undertones and stuff like that. I just wish that those 4 palettes were a little bit more different from one another. That's about it. That's about my thoughts on that boy. Highlighter, yeah. I'm bad with reviewing powder highlights. I know that I am. That's what it comes down to. If you're like a powder highlight lover, maybe like seek out another person that's also a powder highlight loving channel, and then they'll give you a better idea of whether or not that's the powder highlight for you, because it's definitely not for me, but most aren't. I really liked how well it like melted together with my cream, but that's it. Those are my thoughts. Thanks for sending this out to me, and I'm sorry. I'm interested to know if you guys picked these things up and how it's working for you, if you've received it. I think she just launched at the time, but by the time this is out, you guys probably will have received it. Most people anyways. So I'm curious if you did pick it up, what shade did you get? How is it working for you? Do you like it? I'm interested to know what you think of this launch in general, because when I first saw photos of the launch, I was like, okay, that's interesting. She strayed so fucking far from lips. She was like, I'm not touching that shit with a 10-foot pole. And will she ever come back? I don't know, but I would like her to, because I do pretty shamelessly wear my fucking JH lipstick. And I don't care that it's gritty. I'm gonna continue to use it because I love the color so much. I wear this basically in every single video. So I am really hoping a bitch comes back full fucking swing with the lipsticks. You know, that's just my thought. So I'm interested to see like where she like heads. I'm interested to see like what categories she goes into next. Anyways, those are my thoughts thus far. And thanks for joining, guys. Thanks for hanging out. And let's all take a moment to apologize to Alyssa, because editing this video will be a fucking nightmare. Okay, see you guys next time. Peace out.